I personally think it's the future. I think it brings a lot of exciting things for players.
When you can have so many people coordinate and do something big and ambitious like that.
As a gamer, I don't care how that happens. As a technologist, I think the best path to that involves Web3.
Really creating this identity that has really resonated with a lot of the people.
At an early era, so we talk about Web3 a lot. But
so I want to use those incentives of smart contracts and blockchain.
I think we're at the dawning of a new era. The way we connect with one another, the way we share value and exchange value is going through a tremendous evolution. And I think we're approaching a time of greater symbiosis between builders and creators and communities where everyone feels like they're actually in it together, they own it together, and they're co-creating it.
Y'all ready to get started? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Are y'all ready to get started? Let's have fun, y'all.
Extra lives powered up in 3, 2, 1.
Our continued coverage rolls on here at GDC 2023, and we have the pleasure of standing by with Michael Sanders, the co-founder and chief storyteller at Horizon. Thank you so much for taking time out of what I'm sure is a stupid busy schedule at GDC to chat with us.
Yeah, happy to talk with you guys. Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure. Now, you are the co-founder, but what I want to talk about real quick is you are also the chief storyteller at Horizon Games. What is it about the Web3 space that allows you to exercise your love for storytelling in a way that you may not have been able to prior?
So yeah, I see Web3 as this new dimension, this next generation of the internet. And the aspect of storytelling that I'm most interested in is inviting people onto this journey to this next generation where we have new kinds of internet games, applications, and experiences where both users and creators share in the value of the ecosystem. So it's really symbiotic. It's an evolution to what we have in Web 2, which is more of a unidirectional flow of value from users, and then that value gets kind of captured by builders and creators. But Web3 creates this more shared ecosystem. So it's new forms of expression, new forms of collaboration, and of course, new forms of storytelling. And I really believe that one of the most important aspects of storytelling is actually listening, because oftentimes the experiences, the magic is already out there, and it's just about listening and then kind of conveying that in a sensible manner that relates with a broader audience.
Okay, can you expound a little bit on who you're listening to and specifically what you're listening for in a way that allows the community to grow and ultimately flourish?
Yeah, so there's different groups of folks that we listen to at Horizon. So with our game Skyweaver,
Sure.
we listen to the player community, right? And we have community managers, we use Discord, we have a lot of inbound, and it's a matter of we do listen to every sentiment that's shared with us, and then of course we need to discern between which sentiments are most valuable for us to focus on. So that, there's intuition around that, there's data you can use to do that. Then on the Sequence side, which is our developer platform and smart wallet that makes building Web3 games and applications easy, over there we're listening to the builders, the developers, and we ourselves are developers too, so we're really trying to understand where are they still experiencing friction in terms of building their games, and then how can we come in there and solve it? And then when we do have a solution, like how well is it working? Are there areas we can improve? And then in an even broader sense, there's just listening to the market as a whole and listening to internet users as a whole. Like, what are they lacking? And where is the market moving? And then just being in tune with that so that we can make the correct decisions and then ultimately help tell the right story.
Right. I want to circle back to a few things. I definitely want to circle back to telling the right story because that is your area of expertise. I also want to circle back to Skyweaver in just a moment, but you mentioned friction. I would love to hear what you think has been, what you've experienced in the friction of further evolving Web3 gaming.
Yeah, so there's been a few areas of friction. One, there have been bad actors in the space, right? Like there have been scammers, and unfortunately they draw attention and extract money by scamming people, right? And that's disappointing, but it actually is a minority. It's just they tend to make a lot of noise because people get really upset. There's also a lot of friction around just the user experience, or at least there has been until some of the solutions we've built, and of course other players in the space. So just around usability and it being easy enough to understand that you can actually do something with it. So we're actually abstracting away that friction to just make things nice and sensible and intuitive to gamers. I'd say those are the main areas of friction. And I think another component to it is that some of the first generations of Web3 games, they are very much first generation Web3 games.
Right.
And in large part, some of the early game builders like ourselves, we had to solve all of these infrastructure pain points to make the game even playable. So, for some folks, if they don't have a deep experience in infrastructure, that's going to eat up so much of their time and distract them from focusing on gameplay and economy loops and just making a really wonderful community.
GDC 2023, we are off-site at Cello HQ in San Francisco.
Yeah, my name is Marek Olszewski. I'm one of the co-founders of Cello. I'm from Poland. Cello is this mobile-first EVM-compatible chain that just makes it really easy to build really delightful user experiences, Web3 experiences.
We're hosting this show today because we believe in bringing together the community to have amazing conversations about what they're building is changing the world.
Whenever you have a new technological breakthrough, right, the question that's really interesting for everyone is how can we do something that's truly unique? How can we leverage this to do something that wasn't possible before?
We can pay anybody not some crazy grass fee, but a flat fee that they tell us how much it is, and we pay that in front, baked into the transaction, and it'll plug in with Social Connect every phone, Bluetooth, and get 10 billion users like I used to. How do we do that?
How do we bring people on board? How do we get people through the gate? Get people involved and actively make games together.
We really need to come up with something original. Whenever you have a new technology, what's like an interesting opportunity is to try to do something completely novel, something that wasn't possible before without that technology. And so if you think about mobile gaming, right, for a while when mobile devices first came out, there was a lot of, I think, derivative type games that came out, games that, could be played on computers. And so the only thing that really mobile was doing was just making it more accessible. You can play while in the toilet or, on the subway. But there was nothing really that mobile phones did that enabled something that wasn't possible in the early days on regular computers. And then Pokemon Go came out.
I think one of the things that Pokemon Go had going for it is that it was such an established franchise. It kind of scratched that nostalgic itch for a lot of people. What elements of familiarity would you like to see pop up in the Web3 space that will make it more comfortable for people who are more acquainted with the Web2 space to give it a shot?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think ease of use is something that Web3 has historically struggled with, right? It does enable these new and exciting ideas like self-custody, like the ability to custody digital assets, which weren't possible before, but that does require, people learning how to install a wallet and back up their seed phrase and do it in a way that and do everything to prevent them from actually losing custody, ownership of those digital assets. And so there's a lot of work being done to make that simpler, and I think in the coming years a lot of that will be solved, and interacting with the Web3 will feel almost as easy as interacting with the Web2 today. So I think patience is I think, required.
We talked about that Pokemon Go moment where it was like, this is designed to be played on a mobile device.
Right now we have this distinction, right, between Web2 games and Web3 games. And I think it's actually just getting to a point where we're actually not making that distinction anymore, but it's really just, what is a game? You had mobile games and you had, like traditional console TV games, right? And Nintendo Switch, I think, is a good example where they said, wait, for Nintendo, they said there's actually a mechanism in which you can bridge both the mobile component as well as something that's on a TV. It sold really well as a result after, the Wii U really struggled. And I think those are the kinds of things where it doesn't really feel like you're making that choice between one or the other, but it's actually something that you're just like, this is a good game, and I'm doing it because I enjoy playing this game. We have to get to that world.
One of the benefits is if you're playing a game and you really do well with that game, what's the outcome of that? Is that just trapped in that game, or can you take that across multiple games? If I win in this game, can I bring it to another game? Can I show my success? Can I win a badge in one game that makes me a hero character in another game?
General idea is, wouldn't it be pretty awesome if you could take your avatar in one game, walk through a portal, and end up in another game on a completely different blockchain, and have that avatar also take its clothes and items and cars or whatever paraphernalia it had in one world to the other world.
Right. My biggest question is, how in the hell did you get the rights to sort of do something like that? Is that easy or is that hard?
It's pretty hard, right? So if you've seen interoperability in the Web3 world is difficult. If you do it wrong, it means hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars in assets stolen. So yeah, we have to take a very deliberate approach to this effort.
It's sort of like Roger Rabbit effort. They're bringing in the Disney characters, bringing in the Looney Tunes all together in one family.
That would be game changing.
So Web3 has talked about this for a while. They're like, hey, imagine you're playing game X and you can bring your sword, your asset, your clothing, whatever into game Y. They've talked about it, but it really hasn't happened, and at least hasn't happened at scale, and it hasn't happened easily. And so what we want to do with this identity is not just make it that social, that brag thing or anything else, but we want to make it usable. Imagine with that identity, I could tie certain assets to it. I could have that sword, I could have that Easter egg, whatever it is, and as I log into one game, using that identity, I can log into another game with that identity, and of course, if the games allow it, better share those assets.
So what are you bringing to GDC this year?
So we're bringing our profile system. We think it's been a long time since there's been a revolution involving identity and usernames. So we're combining the two and having a profile system for the gaming niche.
Cool. I would love to bust that open a little bit. What is it about having an identity in a virtual space that is so important to the gaming experience?
It's just something that you can build on top of. There used to be a day when achievements mattered on Xbox and you would carry them with you, and that time is long gone. So when a game finishes, you feel like all your achievements are swept under the rug. You remember them, they're glory days, but you can't really show them off or have a place to kind of collect them. So you collect a lot of things, gamers care, you put hundreds of hours in games and they just disappear. So beyond just the personal, let's say ego of the player, there's also everyone who's trying to understand the mindset and where players make decisions, what games they play, what their timeline is. So there's a lot of data left unused, untapped on the back end side. So.
Are you worried at all that gamers that have a lot of disposable income are going to be able to just purchase their way to the top of the game?
This might be spicy here.
Okay.
So, there's two ways that I look at this.
Okay.
The first is that paying your way to the top of something and competing at the top of something are two very different things. I can go out and I can buy the world's best, swimming outfit with the cool low friction cap, because I have a lot of friction on my head, right?
Of course.
I could get the best stuff ever.
Right.
And it will not, when you throw me in a pool next to Michael Phelps, it will not make me competitive.
Touche.
Michael Phelps, he is a fantastic swimmer, and that is all that he does. And that has cost him a tremendous amount of money. This is why they have sponsorships, so he can have a dietitian, so that he can swim for 10 hours a day instead of, doing normal work like everybody else, right? So if you're at the top of your game, something is paying somewhere. And that's not necessarily a problem.
We've been building layer by layer, from consensus to the SDK to now the virtual machine, and every time we build a new layer, we're trying to make the best design. Is it the most simplest design it can be without being any simpler, while ensuring scalability and security?
The good things about layer 1, there's like some things people don't like about layer 1, and we have layer 2 to solve some problems. Also, we have layer 3 on top of layer 2 to solve some other more problems. So I think like the layers, the layer 2, layer 3, and the ZK, I think those things can really help people to change the industry. I think that's two things I think pretty important in this space right now.
My name is Vijay Krishnan. I head the technical pre-sales for the company called Consensus, which is probably the pioneer in the Web3 industry. We work on multiple projects in the Ethereum ecosystem. That's because the co-founder of Ethereum is the founder of the company as well. The well-known projects, as usual, are MetaMask, Infura. Now we are also working on something called decentralized Infura. With MetaMask, we are working on something called MetaMask Snaps, which probably many of you are familiar with.
Now, this past Sunday, Consensus had its collab event where it debuted that virtual wallet to be used within Web3 spaces. How did that go, and why is it important in a Web3 space going forward?
Yeah, sure. See, we've been focusing probably a lot of spaces, but definitely not on the gaming space. So Collab is a new initiative done by our marketing and DevRel team, which is essentially to bring in the developers into the Web3 space and then give them with tools and techniques and ideas and everything that they need to get started with Web3.
You don't need to manage, your wallets or your private keys in Upland. Our smart client does that for you, but still maintains the concept of true ownership. So we as operators cannot touch your digital assets without your explicit permission. You can on-ramp with crypto, but you can also on-ramp with fiat. But more importantly, you can off-ramp in fiat as well. So as a player, if you choose to sell your digital assets in Upland, and every digital asset in Upland is either an NFT or a fungible token, you can do that directly for US dollars.
So wallet is very important because it's the entrance for the Web2 community to Web3. So the security of the wallet, how easy to access to the wallet, and the function of the wallet and decentralization of the wallet, like everything about the wallet and the MPC, like a seed phrase. There's so many things we need to work on the wallet.
The goal here is how do we abstract blockchains away from end users, because to be totally frank, blockchains kind of suck. I've been doing this for about 6 years. I teach workshops at UCLA and all these great schools, and computer science students lose their keys in the same workshop. We're not building it right if that's a problem, if that's still happening. And so, we've addressed all these things. Like it's live today, just like near.org, all the docs are there. People can build in JavaScript, and that's another huge barrier of entry for most people.
What are some ways you can see the Web3 space overcoming that in a way that it's going to be a little bit more accessible?
Well, actually, yes, that is a problem historically. On your protocol, that's not a problem. Onboarding is super straightforward. All accounts are by default human readable. So I'm Cameron.near. You can actually make it Cameron.anything, Cameron.amazon, Cameron.TSM, whatever it is. And so that is pretty much addressed. The second thing is with onboarding, every wallet is a smart contract. So you can arbitrarily manage access to accounts. It's pretty much Ponzi-nomics is what's driving a lot of game activity in Web3 today. And I'm a gamer, and I hate it. I've been gaming since I've been literally 2 years old. A lot of the most popular Web3 games are actual jobs for people in emerging economies trying to make money for just playing these apps. And then they don't really care about the game. They're not playing the game for fun. They're playing the game because it makes them money.
Web3 has gotten this terrible reputation because of a lot of low quality product that was deployed at the beginning of this entire Web3 adventure, okay? And game developers understandably dislike that and get, there's a lot of pushback around some of these specific issues. And so But that doesn't mean that's what it has to continue being.
Right.
And I think that's the critical thing is it's like, look, yes, that was not ideal. We all agree that was not ideal. That's why we're in the space. You know, we're in the space because we looked at this and we're like, wow, that's really awful.
Yeah.
We can and should do better.
And also, to your point earlier, how many amazing ideas and amazing advancements in gaming start out with those stumbles?
Constantly.
Like all of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Literally all of them, yeah.
What do you want to see growing and flourishing in the Web3 space as far as a gaming experience?
The reason why metaverses are really interesting to me is because it will open the door to massive multiplayer online games where the game is not owned by any central company, but rather it's a living protocol that allows anyone to permissionlessly extend it.
What makes a game fun?
I think that my favorite part about different games is to see the different languages that each game can transcript to, and to really make sure that each game puts in the same culture and pretty much like make sure you represent everyone with your game so that everyone feels included and has a character they can relate to.
What makes a game fun?
Replayability, I would say, and like competition. So like Battle Royale, in my opinion, was like spot on in growing this genre because it's the same model, same game, same map. Fortnite really did this well. Obviously they were influenced by like PUBG, King of the Kill, but people really ran with that model. And I think the next wave, especially with what Fortnite's doing with the Unreal 2, it's going to be really cool to watch.
Yeah.
So.
What makes just those really engaging, enthralling, thrilling elements for a video game for you? This is just your opinion.
Just depends on the mechanic, the core game loop. Is it catchy? And is it unique? Because I like testing out new mechanics.
What makes a game fun?
That's a good question, because what makes a game fun and what makes a game compelling?
Right.
There's two different things. There's a fun factor of like, that was fun for 3 minutes, but we're looking for something that's going to keep the people, get in for the first 3 minutes, but then stay for the next 2 hours.
Right.
Right. The average Roblox player will play a game for something like 6 minutes, and then move to the next one, and then move to the next one. So we really need to grab something that's going to grab the player, hold the player, and keep them coming back and share with their friends as well.
What makes a game fun?
Yeah, well, for me, so I think it's a matter of taste, which I think is great in gaming. So we have a lot of big games that are probably going to be fairly splashy. So you've got Dead Drop, which is Dr. Disrespect's game. That's a first-person shooter. I mean, it looks incredible. They demoed here yesterday. I'm not a first-person shooter guy, right? They stress me out a little bit. So I sort of like the RPGs. I'm actually really excited about our Nexon announcement we made a couple days ago, Maple Story, which is a game from my childhood. And so it's super exciting to be able to use that IP, which is massive, and they already have so many players. For me, I even play the hyper-casual games, so like Arc 8 with Game E, it's a hyper-casual mobile game I got addicted to pretty good. So yeah, I think it depends on what your vibe is as a gamer.
I'm personally really excited about this idea of building physical games that aren't necessarily played in front of computers. I think one of the things that Web3 is really good at is coordination. There was this really exciting thing that happened recently where a whole bunch of people came together and said, hey, let's try to buy the US Constitution. There was a copy of the US Constitution, one of the few originals that was up for auction, and people came together in a DAO and said, let's put money into this pot and let's try to actually buy it. And they didn't actually succeed. They were the second highest bid. But all of that happened in this span of just a few weeks. It would have been likely impossible without Web3, without crypto. And I think that's what gets me excited about the future of gaming. When you can have so many people coordinate and do something big and ambitious like that, that's going to be something new. That's going to be something truly original. And I have a hypothesis that the things that people are going to do are actually going to potentially be outside of their computers. So perhaps in-person type games. We were just chatting upstairs about could we turn reality TV shows into games? That's something that I think, like the production of a reality TV show is very, very expensive, very difficult.
You actually had a more specific idea of an example of that, the Amazing Race token track.
Yeah, so it's just a fun little idea that some people now in the community are getting excited about. So The Amazing Race is obviously a very successful TV show that's been, I think, onto its 30-something season at this point. It's clearly a lot of fun. It's fun to watch. It's clearly fun to participate in. And so this idea was just like, what if we took inspiration from it and created like a Web3 version, not of the TV show, but of a game that mirrors some of the things that they have done well. And so this could be one exciting and unique idea. And again, there's some people now that, as of very recently are now really excited about this and actually trying to see if it's something they can make happen.
For our end, we've actually partnered with a number of nonprofits like CARE International, Mercy Corps, the World Food Program, Grameen Foundation, among others. And so there's different kinds of things we can look at. So one is, for example, universal basic income or humanitarian aid cash transfers. So how can you use crypto as an easier way to send money to other parts of the world that has high amount of traceability and transparency? So, if we think of humanitarian aid, like money goes out, but you don't really know if it reaches the end person, how that's being spent, if it's really being used in the best way. And so there's a lot of kind of opportunity that comes about for that. And so we've done a lot of work, for example, with CARE on humanitarian aid. Another thing we've done is we're working with the Grameen Foundation, which is a large microfinance institution that kind of works in different parts of the world on microloans. So how can you get lending more accessible for people anywhere around the world?
There's a big reason why they hired me. One is that I bring experience in the Web3 adoption space, which has been, it's a broad Web3 challenge, I would say, across everything I've seen thus far. And I think a lot of it is like bringing in thoughtfulness around like user experience, relevance, and also just like global scale, which is, especially in my past worlds, really where my bread and butter has been.
I believe this is the first interview where relevance came up. So I would love for you to kind of expound on that a little bit and dive into what relevance means in introducing the world, or perhaps reintroducing the world to this Web3 space.
Yeah, I think relevance is all about meeting the user where they're at, and having a common language, a common culture, and a common understanding.
I spent the first portion of my life in a log cabin, and I didn't have internet, I didn't have access to these things. It wasn't until I moved to Florida and I got my first machine that I was just mesmerized. My first language was Bash. I made my own asteroids game using Perl, and ever since then I'm just enthralled by the concept that you can do such amazing things on such a little device. Now we have computers in our pockets, blowing my mind comparatively.
How has that fulfillment and that experience evolved for you over the years? Because you didn't even have internet in that log cabin, moved to Florida from Alaska, right? I don't know how you get different from that, but like you've seen this process evolve so much over the years. What continues to just blow your mind time and time again?
It's the ingenuity. It's almost the audacity of programs that they will defy all odds to create things that are insurmountable, things that you would never imagine, that you would never think possible. In the span of 20 years, I've seen pixels go to 3D models, from 3D models to go to high definition. Now we have Unreal Engine with MetaHuman, the ability to transverse perfect synchronicity between someone's motions and someone's facial captures. We now have lifelike models that are so indistinguishable from reality that it just drives fantasy beyond anything. It's that right there, that emotional capture, what drives me every day. It makes me want to develop the next generation of technology, to help these engineers, to help the developers, and at the same time, it helps the world.
My hope is that what we're seeing now is just like the margins are becoming that movement, and then we will see that cusp. For me personally, I'm really excited about real estate and prop tech.
Okay, first time I'm hearing about this.
And gaming prop tech. I just feel like right now one of the biggest, fastest growing projects on our world is we have a few prop tech. One of them is a way that a girl in India can purchase fractional property in the U.S. without being like security and all the regulation. They can actually purchase it and own property here in the U.S. And that's all through the blockchain. And so something like that at scale, where now you all of a sudden provide access to people who normally would not have access, those are the things that we're going to start seeing global adoption.
What are you most excited about from a storytelling perspective about what you have coming up? What's in the works that you can discuss where you're just like, it gives you the warm and fuzzies when you see it come to life?
Yeah, I think we're at the dawning of a new era, and the way that humans play, the way that humans interact, the way we connect with one another, the way we share value and exchange value is going through a tremendous evolution. And I think we're approaching a time of greater symbiosis between builders and creators and communities, where everyone feels like they're actually in it together, they own it together, and they're co-creating it, rather than feeling exploited by some organization that is just there to make a bunch of money, let's say, right?
Right.
So it makes me feel really warm, because it's like this trip to unity, like, and not the brand Unity,
right.
They're great too, but union, you know?
Right.
And just, I just honestly think creating like a more symbiotic way of interacting with one another.
Earlier you mentioned in time was the phrase you used. Like, in time, people are gonna want to gravitate more toward Web3. What does that timeline look like to you? Like, how long do you think it's gonna take until people are really excited about Web3?
I think it's going to be a lot shorter than a lot of people here at GDC think.
Okay. How short is that?
I think that the resistance to Web3 gaming concepts, okay, is very centrally orchestrated.
As in deliberate?
Quite. And I don't necessarily, I don't mean it's like a deliberate, like, wahaha, tinfoil hat sort of thing. I just think that, you know, these are people who all get together and hang out and talk. And, you know, if gaming executives don't know what to do with this and they spend a bunch of time talking to gaming journalists, you know, there's always that slight psychic pressure almost that gets exerted on the entire journalistic, gaming journalism organization structure as a whole.
This is our booth on the showroom floor. We've brought our Game On campaign here, and we are featuring a lot of the Polygon games. We have one happening right now, if you can see it or hear it behind me. We're really trying to activate for all of our partners here and let them show off the work they're doing.
Awesome. We had a chance to kind of peruse this as it was still under construction. Definite, like, video game cave vibes. Definite, like, going to my friend's mom's house who has the cool setup in the basement.
I'm glad you're feeling the warm feelies of that nostalgic vibe. So we almost came to GDC last year, and then we didn't, as far as the showroom floor. And I think the difference 1 year makes for crypto gaming or blockchain gaming, Web3 gaming, whatever you want to call it, is immense. So we were very deliberate in how we wanted to show up here as a Web3 gaming company and sort of signal that we are gamers too, to our core. So this is, everybody's familiar with this vibe, this sort of Wayne's World basement-esque thing with the old consoles and all of that.
You actually have Wayne's World on the shelf over there, the VHS.
VHS tapes, the posters on the wall. So we wanted to have that warm, charming, approachable feeling rather than, you know, try to show off just massive tech company type vibes. And I think it's been received well, both from our partners, and everybody's had a good time with it, and from people stopping by. It just makes you feel good. So I think that was our main thing. We wanted people to know that we are gamers, blockchain gaming is gaming, Web3 gaming is nothing to be afraid of, so hopefully that's what people take away.
Something that keeps coming up is mobile gaming having their Pokemon Go moment, where it was really like, this game is designed for mobile gaming, and it made everybody feel okay about a game that is specifically designed for mobile gaming. What is the strategy you're implementing that is going to make people feel more okay about giving Web3 gaming a shot beyond the nostalgia of a booth here at GDC?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the thing is that's mainly up to the developers, right? We're a protocol partner, so we're here to support them. We're the infrastructure. We need to make sure it all works whenever they activate on the blockchain. But from what I'm seeing from them, I think there's a lot of people are trying a lot of different things. So I think it'll be interesting to see what works and what sort of cuts through maybe into more like a mass market moment. And it probably will be, if I had to guess, sort of abstracting away the NFT and the technology and that sort of thing. And it's got to be a good game first. It's got to be a fun game. That's a fun game. Yeah. And so unless you have fun first, there's no point in trying to, you know, capture sovereign ownership on the blockchain and all that sort of stuff. So I think the game developers for Web3 Gaming this year is really exciting because a couple years ago we made all these announcements. All these big developers are going to be building games, and now they're finally coming out. They're finally going into beta. They're finally demoing. So I'm really excited to see what's going to stick for sure.
Obviously, we're focusing on the gaming space here at GDC, but how do you see the benefits of Web3 rippling out into other areas of communication, commerce, and beyond?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So Polygon as a protocol and Polygon Labs, like we work across all verticals, whether that's enterprise, institutions, governments. Gaming is obviously a really fun vertical to work on. But for us, I think it's about, you know, a society without borders and true ownership on the internet. At the end of the day, without being overly hyperbolic, it's sort of fundamentally rewiring the whole internet and how everything works. And it's no longer, your company is going to be online or not. Every company's online. Every entertainment property is online. And I think the blockchain provides a really compelling way, and hopefully very soon the de facto way to enter whatever market you are going to enter for your different properties.
D-Labs Games, your portal to the fun side of Web3. We're here today to find the next Rumble Racing star. Second and third place.
Fourth place. What are you gonna do? I get nothing. I get the joy of playing the game. That's it. Worth it though. That was a good time though. It was a good game. Definitely shades of Mario Kart. Heavily inspired by Mario Kart, which is a hard formula to mess up, but this was a lot of fun.
Whether a game is fun or not is kind of tangential to whether it includes Web3 like components or not. Right. So in fact, like, you know, a game could be amazing and it could have Web3. It could be like terrible and it could be not Web3. So the way we kind of think about this space is it's more about who's really focused on the great content. And if they happen to be including Web3 in there, great. Like, we'd be happy to work with them. But it's like, you know, we care deeply about building the great experiences, and we want to work with studios that are more focused on the content side.
After that, I'm going to need to be able to drag my mouse to paint blobs. Then eventually, when I release the mouse...
Oh my God, hi. Can you give you a hug? Can we check it out? Let's go check it out. Yeah, we're just kind of looking around the expo floor and snagged us down, and this is pretty slick. We're at a gaming convention, and the longest line is for ice cream. Of course it is. Well, good thing I got a Game Boy. Sticky monkey. Okay. Oh my God, yeah. Sticky monkey, please. Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, buddy. It tastes like banana peanut butter heaven. Banana peanut butter heaven is what it tastes like. These giant peanut butter chunks. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the size of that chunk. I'm such a sucker for peanut butter too. Got my pins, I got my ice cream, I got my beer. You want any? You good? All right.
Well, that's going to do it for ESR 24/7 Esports Network here at GDC 2023. These past 5 days have been absolutely phenomenal. They've been equally exhausting. I probably caffeinated way more than I should have, but a truly memorable 5 days here at GDC. A special shout out to Merrick at Cello for letting us come to your headquarters and have a good chunk of your time. Huge shout out to Jason at Gala Games for allowing us to lounge in the Gala Games Lounge and take us out for a memorable night on the town to one of the coolest barcades I've ever seen. A shout out to Sequence for letting us hang out in the Sequence Lounge, one of the dopest spaces here at GDC. And another shout out to Polygon Labs with arguably the most memorable booth here at GDC. Absolutely nostalgia personified, and we also had a good bit of fun playing games at the Polygon Lounge. So all this to say, after all these interviews, after it's all said and done, I think if we can just be patient enough to find a way to bridge the gap between Web 2 and Web 3, we just might be on the forefront of the next step of evolution in gaming itself. For the ESR 24/7 Esports Network, I've been your host, AJ Kirsch, and this has been Inside Web3 Gaming at GDC.